Hello, friends. It's Chops, and welcome to yet another Chopsvlog. We are humming along on these, man. I think we're almost up to 30. That'd be pretty impressive. Um, yeah, I'm working through Talador. Um, I most of my game time this week was spent updating my vet account. I do have a vet account. I know this is largely a free to play channel, but I do have a vet account that I have a bunch of alts on, and I decided it was time to do some updates for them. Change their gear around. I made a few decisions about like wanting to play higher haste on my casters and stuff like that. So I did all that, and a lot of my time that I had during the week to game went into that account instead of my free to play. So we are still in Talador. That said, we're moving through Talador at a pretty good clip. I was checking my achievement progress window here, and I only have In the Shadows of Auchendown or Auchendoon or however you pronounce it to go. That's all I have left, and that is a rare. That is what I'm currently working on. That's the quest line that I'm currently on, which I guess means I'm seeing what the fall of Auchendown looked like and how it became sort of the dungeon hub that it is in the Burning Crusade, which is all well and good, I guess. I have a hard time buying into any sort of time travel story. And I've mentioned this before, and I guess it's as good a time as any to explain myself. I don't like time travel as a story device. I just really don't. Unless your story is about time travel, in which case, cool, yeah, let's do it. And I guess the difference that I mean there is like something like Back to the Future or Looper or Quantum Leap. There we go, showing my age a little bit. These are stories that contain time travel that are also about time travel, right? So it's fine that they have time travel in them because they're sort of about the struggles of time travel, and that's good. That's a good thing, right? And their protagonists and antagonists movement in and around the timelines is sort of the major contributor to the story. But in other stories, in other universes where they just kind of try to like introduce time travel, and think here of like any time travel episodes or movies of Star Trek, any time travel or flashback scenes that you see in Harry Potter is a good one. Just a really poorly executed time travel story there. Any other like I'm struggling with it right now, but any of those things where they just try to shoehorn time travel into an existing world, it never works. And the only reason they ever really do it is it's sort of a way to either A, get themselves out of corners that they've written themselves into that they don't know how to get themselves out of, and it's just like time travel, or it's they've kind of run out of ideas and they're just trying to stall the story. Because in any existing universe where you introduce time travel, it's always like, oh, we have to go back in time to prevent this bad guy from changing the timeline in a bad way. And the entire goal of the time travel is to make sure that nothing changes in the present. So you have this entire story device that's sole purpose is to make sure that nothing happens, right? And so it's very hard to get invested in when, if the good guys succeed, nothing happens, right? Like you put all this work and all this effort and all this concern into a storyline and to a progression in which nothing that takes place ultimately matters. And if the bad guys win, the whole whole storyline is altered, and so it doesn't, and so all of the care and progress that you would put into the story previous to that didn't matter, right? And it's sort of like the ultimate in fuck you to your reader. And it's really like, it's a bad idea. And so that's what Warlords of Draenor is. And I haven't been paying attention to like the major overarching story in its entirety, but ultimately what it boils down to is bad guy going back in time to do bad thing, and good guys having to prevent him from doing said bad thing, in the hopes that we can maintain the integrity of the existing timeline, right? And so basically nothing happens. That makes it extremely hard to buy into anything that's going on in this X-Pack from sort of a story perspective. That said, I am enjoying the story, right? Like, I think it's kind of this weird like balancing act between like, this doesn't matter, but I guess the way y'all have kind of executed it isn't terrible. Like a lot of the time travel, a lot of the reason they use time travel in stories like that, and they kind of shoehorn it into existing universes, is it plays on your desire to know more about that world and more about that story. Because it's neat to go through this and see like sort of the prehistory of the Warcraft universe. You know, you get to see Terran Gorefiend before he becomes Terran Gorefiend, right? You get to see Durotan before he's Durotan. You get this sort of like pre-legend, these sort of pre-legend glimpses at the people who do eventually become the legends in this world, and the people whom the story is built upon. You get to see them in their sort of like pre-heroic phase, which is, if you're a curious person and you like a good story and you're kind of like, you know, you're like, oh man, I really wish I knew more about this world, and I really wish I knew more about these people, and this is really compelling and interesting. Dang it, I didn't get the pet. Of course that appeals to you. You know, it tugs at you. You're like, oh, I get to know. This is like reading the prequels. You know, that kind of thing. And but that's what it relies on in its entirety. Like, it offers you nothing else. It's relying on your investment in an existing story for the story to be good. Like, if you were coming into Warlords of Draenor completely new, like if you had never, if you didn't know anything about it, none of this would be important to you. You don't care who any of these people are. You know, you haven't spent at this point, I think like 15 years in the Warcraft universe. Like, you hadn't been playing through the real-time strategy games. You're just playing through, and it's like, who are these people? Why does this matter? Why is, like, the time travel is relying on your experience with the world to give the story the kind of gravitas that a good story would already have. And that's kind of my problem with it. But also, because I have that background, it does have that kind of gravitas to it. And so I'm like, ooh, this is good. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with Warlords of Draenor and sort of the whole like time travel thing. As I think it's a bad device, but like, it's meant to play on exactly the type of person that I am, and fuck them, man. It works. You know, what can I say? I have also, at least so far, enjoyed the garrison thing, right? Like, I from what I understand, at Endgame, when WOD was current content, nobody really liked the garrison things. It became a chore. It was intended to be kind of a player housing situation that didn't turn out to be what people were looking for in the player housing thing, which, side note, stop asking for that. I don't know why people want player housing. I don't know what they expect it to be, but it's always going to be shitty. Like, stop. We can just stop that right now. Anyways, unless you want to do like, what is that, Animal Island or whatever it's called, you can go play that game if you want player housing. Animal Crossing, that's what it's called. Anyways, I understand that the Garrison people didn't like it in WOD, and it became like this just litany of chores that you had to do every day, and it kind of was a big letdown compared to what people were expecting it to be. But I kind of like it, at least as part of the questing process, where like what you're doing in the game is you're essentially on a military campaign, right? Like, you're going into this hostile foreign land, you're setting up an outpost, putting together a foothold, and then starting to expand your campaign into this enemy territory. And you're having to build and maintain supply lines. You're having to build connections with the local cultures. You're having to sort of secure your base of operations outside of your traditional home, which is the original like Azeroth, right? So I think that's been pretty neat, especially as someone who has spent the past couple of weeks sort of reading through and listening through sort of the history of Rome and their military conquest and how they set up their outposts and their supply lines when they were pushing into like the Persian Empire and stuff like that. It kind of overlaps with stuff I was learning and thinking about there. So I think that has actually been very cool. I've liked that part a lot. And I anticipate enjoying it as we continue on into the other zones. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll decide that it all sucks at some point. But so far, that's been fun. I realize I'm kind of doing like a WOD roundup, and I'm only like halfway through it. But that's just kind of where my head's at right now, is thinking about like, well, how does this compare to MOP, which is really unfair because I loved MOP and I really just kind of like this. And I'm trying to be open to the possibility that it could be really good. I don't know that it will be. It's just so far like not bad, and occasionally somewhat fun. But yeah, that's about it. I wanted to say I had a few thoughts about what's coming up in sort of the future. People do seem to like the PvP videos. I will be doing more of those. Don't expect any like high intensity editing PvP montages that you see in a lot of like twink channels and stuff. I don't have the time to like put in to edit those as much as I would like to. I did kind of start this YouTube channel as like a way to like, there's an excuse to teach myself how to do video editing. But it comes to find out video editing takes a lot of time. I have enough time to play, and I have enough time to kind of fiddle with video editing. I do not have enough time to like really put into being a good video editor, at least not right now. But the solo shuffle stuff is really like, it's low effort, puts together some entertaining stories. Like you get to see sort of the progress and swinginess of a series of 6 arena matches, and as opposed to like a bunch of disconnected arena matches, if that makes sense. And they're better than Battleground videos, where a lot of times, a lot of what happens in a Battleground is like either A, I'm getting distracted and getting into fights that don't have any sort of like meaning to the ending of the game. I'm just like, there's a bad guy, I'm gonna hit him. Or like there's just really not a lot going on for long stretches of time as you're running from one side of the Battleground to the other. So the solo shuffle ones are a good choice, and we'll probably do more of those. I am also working on a sort of like bigger video that I am actually going to put some editing time into, and am actually going to like have a script for and all that. I think I've mentioned it before, but it's a sort of defense of my idea that the paid version of World of Warcraft is actually a worse game in every regard to the free-to-play version of the game, which I know sounds crazy. Like the full game is somehow worse than the little mini game you get from you get for free, and that doesn't make any sense. And why would that be the case? And whatever. So I'm going to explain myself there. And that video is what I'll be working on as soon as I kind of sign off here and get a little more questing done. So keep your eyes out for that one. I'm very proud of the concept of it, and I like sort of the rough draft that I have so far of the script. So I'm going to be very excited to share that one with y'all. Yeah, that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap that up. I feel like that was probably long enough that I don't need to slap on any vibe music or anything like that to finish this one out. So I am going to, I'm just going to kind of sign off now. And I'll be questing for the rest of the day, and you guys can go about doing whatever it is you were going to do with the rest of your Monday. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys, and I'll talk to y'all next time.